Well, hello scrappers, welcome back to my channel. This is part 3 of me doing a toll refine on Ken's 45 roughly pounds of BGA RAM chips. And woohoo, this is a momentous day. All of his chips are finally through the foundry furnace. They've all been incinerated. This is the last load. I'm going to take this over here. And we're going to dump it in this bucket with the rest of the incinerated chips. And I've just got to get all the rest of these chips through the ball mill. Making pretty good progress on that. Probably enough chips in there to probably take me another couple days to get them all ball milled. And then I can do a gravity separation on them like I did in the last video on the first half of the chips. And then we'll have all of our concentrates ready for chemical processing. And I said in the last video that I was going to wait on the chemical processing until I had all of the chips ball milled and concentrated with a gravity separation. But I think I'm going to do a small scale test just to see, A, whether my idea on how to get rid of the steel actually works. I'm pretty confident on it. I've done it before, but we'll give it a small scale test. And B, just to see just how much gold there is in these concentrates. So I think I'm going to get set up to do a small scale test. And I'll show you that when I do it here. But for now, I gotta get this ball mill running again. Lots of chips left to mill. Alright, let's turn the ball mill off for a minute. I really need to run that and finish these chips, but I'll turn that off for a minute so you can hear me. I said I was gonna do a small scale test, so I'm pretty much set up for that. Got the concentrates that I made in the last video after doing the gravity separation on the material from Ken's chips. And let me get my scale on here. And grams. Don't make them like they used to, let me tell you. Grams. Alright. So I'm just going to grab, like, I don't know, 200 grams of material out of here. And it's going to be sort of grabbed at random. That's 135. 185. 220. Well, we'll go with 220, alright? We'll go with 220. Just so I know how much material I've got. And what I'm going to do is, I know there's a lot of steel in this stuff, so I'm going to give it a treatment with hydrochloric acid and see if I can get rid of all the steel in it. I'm pretty sure I can. And we'll also stir it around and we'll look and we'll see just how much gold there is in it. Now, might as well run this all the way through. We'll give it the treatment with the hydrochloric acid, get the steel out of it. Then we'll treat it with nitric acid to get the other base metals out. Then we'll treat it with aqua regia and see how much gold's in it, okay? Now, 220 grams out of, I don't know how many pounds of material we got here, but don't take this as a representative sample, okay? Because I would not be surprised if the gold is stratified in this bucket and there's a lot of gold in some places and not a lot of gold in others. So this may not be a representative sample of everything in the bucket. We may have got it from a particularly rich area in the bucket. We may have got it from an area where there's not much gold at all. So don't take this as a representative sample, okay? So let's go over to the fume hood and see what we can do with this stuff. Okay, so I've got our little 220 gram sample in the fume hood in a beaker. And I hope this shows up. It's really kind of subtle, but I hope this shows up. Alright. So let me turn on the rotation. The stirring. Let me turn it on. That's probably not showing up. That's really subtle. But that stuff is spinning. Even without a stir bar in there, it's spinning. It's going around and around. That's from all of the steel filings in the concentrate, okay, from the chips that were not BGA chips, all right? They still had legs on them. Some of them had internal legs. The external legs had all been chewed off by Ken in AP solution, but they still had internal legs and steel frameworks. So there's a lot of steel in this stuff. And that is so weird. It's spinning slowly, but it's spinning without a stir bar in it, okay? In fact, if I put a stir bar in it, it wouldn't spin because all those steel particles would glom onto the magnetic stir bar and it would be so big and fat and there'd be so much resistance it won't spin. So what I need to do is I need to get rid of this steel. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put some muriatic acid on it and crank the heat up. So put a little acid on it. A few hundred milliliters muriatic acid. It's very humid out here. It's been raining, so this stuff's fuming strongly. And let me turn the heat on. And we'll just boil this. And that acid should chew up the steel filings in there pretty well. It may take a few hours, it may take the rest of the day, but it will chew through those steel filings in there, and we'll be left with just any other base metals that aren't attacked by acid, the gold, and the silicon dye material. So everything I do with Ken's chips is probably going to get this same treatment. I'm just trying it out on a small scale. I know it's going to work because I've done it before on my own chips, but I just want to show you what I'm going to do on a small scale, because when I get to the big scale and I'm working on buckets full of stuff, some of this stuff I'm going to be doing may not be so clear. I may be too busy to film it in detail, but I'll show you this on the small scale, what we're going to do here. And I think I'm just going to take this all the way through. Might as well. I'm going to get rid of the steel in it. That's also going to get rid of tin, zinc, aluminum, any other base metals in there that are quite reactive. They're all going to get eliminated by this hydrochloric acid treatment, okay? And then I'll wash the stuff that's left, get the chlorine out of it, and I'll treat it with nitric acid. And that should dissolve any of the other base metals in there. The copper, the silver, pretty much anything else in there, and just leave behind the gold and the dye material. And then we'll treat that with aqua regia, and we'll get the gold out of it. And like I said earlier, don't treat this as a representative sample. There could be more or less gold in here than other parts of the bucket that I didn't sample. So we'll see. But what I'm going to do is, once we get the steel dissolved out of this, when I'm rinsing the material left in the beaker to get the chlorine out of it, we'll swish it around and see if we can get whatever gold is in there to settle to the bottom corner of the beaker, and we'll see if we can see it and see how much it looks like is there anyway. I'll bet there's some gold in this beaker. So we'll see. So this has got to heat up, and we'll just let it sit there and cook and spin on its own without a stir bar in it, and come back and check on it later. It's been a little while. Got a pretty vigorous reaction going on in there. There's a little bit of boiling, but also there's some little fizzing going on as the iron filings dissolve in the acid. So it's working. It's working. It's also still spinning a little bit, so that tells me there's still some iron filings in there that haven't dissolved yet. May have to give it 2 treatments, but it's only been on for 20 or 30 minutes or so, so it's going to take a while to dissolve all those iron filings. And then once they're pretty much gone, I will put a stir bar in there and stir it that way, just to make sure everything gets thoroughly mixed and exposed to the acid, and all of the iron filings get dissolved, and all the other base metals in there that will dissolve in hydrochloric acid get dissolved too. So it's working. Alright, it's been a little while longer. I threw a real stir bar in there, so now we've got some serious stirring and agitation going on. So this should speed up the process something wonderful. We don't just have that slow, lazy swirl anymore from just the iron filings in there. We've got some decent stirring going on. So I'm just going to let this cook for, it hasn't been that long. So I'm going to let it go a few hours. I may change out the acid too. if it looks like it needs a second treatment, which it might. There's a lot of iron in there. So it might need a second treatment. But I'm just going to let it go for now. Okay, this stuff's been boiling for a few hours. I am going to change out the liquid. I'm just going to drain this stuff off and put some fresh muriatic acid in it and give it another cook. Just to make sure we get rid of as much of the iron out of this as possible. And I think I was blocking the view there with my elbow, my big elbow. So we'll do it this way. Just drain this stuff off, try and leave the solids in the beaker. Yep. And then we'll put some more muriatic acid on that and get it cooking again. Back in the fume hood. Okay, second dose of acid. This will probably do it. There's not that much material in there. We'll just give it a second bath. Some of this stuff down. The deep yellow color that the acid turned, that's normal for when you're dissolving iron in hydrochloric acid. So we're spinning, put the heat back on, and we'll let that cook for a few more hours, and then I think we'll be ready to move on. I think we'll have pretty much all of the iron out of it. Alright, just gonna let it cook some more. Okay, it's the next morning. I left this on into the evening, cooking, spinning, and I shut it down and just let it sit overnight. So I'm pretty sure we've gotten all of the steel dissolved out of it, or at least the vast bulk of the steel dissolved out of it. So I'm going to take this out of here, and I'm going to decant off this irony acid in here, and we're going to give the remains at the bottom of the beaker a few washes to get the chlorine out of it. And then we're gonna finish the job on this. Basically, we're gonna give it a nitric acid treatment to try and dissolve out any remaining base metals, and then we're gonna give it an aqua regia treatment to get the gold out. But first, let's see if there's any significant amount of gold in this stuff. I'll bet there is. And when we're washing it, we should be able to see it. So let me get started on that. Man, it's hard to believe I repainted this bench not too long ago. I do beat the crap out of it. Okay, so let's get this stuff cleaned up. First thing I want to do is pour off this irony liquid. Is that deep yellow color that you get when you dissolve iron in hydrochloric acid. Ferrous chloride, I believe. Or is it ferric chloride? It's one or the other. I don't know which. Okay. Now I'm going to give the first few rinses just using tap water. The idea is to get the chlorine out of this stuff, and I know there's chlorine in my tap water, but there's a lot of chlorine in here. So the first couple rinses, even with tap water, are going to get a lot of chlorine out. And then I'll do a few finishing rinses with some distilled water. Okay? We're going to get a little of the light stuff coming over here, but the heavies are going to stay in the beaker. Give it another rinse and swirl it and see if we can see any gold. Whoops, making a mess. It's another reason the bench is all ugly looking. Drain some of this liquid off, and we'll swirl it around and see if we can see any gold. Okay, I've swirled this stuff around, and there's a nice little band of gold down in here that I can see. The question is, can I make it visible to you guys? Let me see what I can do. Let me see if I can show it to you without losing it. if it's showing up there. I don't see it on the viewfinder, but I can see it with my eye. There's a nice little band of gold there. I'll see if I can see it in editing. So we got some gold in here. And only about 220 grams of the concentrate I made from Ken's chips. We've got some gold, so that's good. Let me finish rinsing this stuff, give it a couple of distilled water rinses. And we'll get it back in the fume hood, and we will hit it with some nitric acid and see if we can get anything else out of it. I think we've done a pretty good job of getting the iron out of it. Where's my stir bar? Yeah, there's my stir bar down there. It doesn't look like a fuzzy bear covered with iron particles. So I think we've done a pretty good job of getting the iron out of this stuff. I think it's time to try and get the other base metals out of it. Okay, so let me finish rinsing it. We'll get it back in the fume hood and do that. Okay, so we're all rinsed. This is ready to go back in the fume hood. One problem I can see with this method of eliminating the iron from the concentrates is that I only did 220 grams of concentrate, so there's probably a lot less in here now that I've dissolved all the iron out of it. But I've created almost a liter of acidic wastewater just doing 220 grams of chips. So I can see that this is going to scale up rapidly. I'm going to have a lot of waste liquid to deal with. So I have a method for dealing with my acidic irony waste. It's pretty similar to what comes out of my waste bucket after treatment with iron. You know, the stuff that goes into my stock pot sits in there with copper, and any precious metals left in the stock pot liquid cement out on the copper goes into solution, okay? Periodically I will siphon off the material in the stock pot into my waste bucket, which is full of iron. And the same thing happens then. The copper and any other heavy metals in the liquid will cement out on the iron in the waste bucket, and then the iron goes into solution. So this is very similar to the liquid that's going to be coming out of my waste bucket. So it's basically acidic and it's full of iron. So I have a method for dealing with that. So I can treat this stuff the same way. I'm just going to have a lot of it to treat, obviously. If any of you are interested in seeing how to deal with that waste, I can make a video. Maybe once I'm done dealing with all of Ken's chips and I have a bunch of waste, I can make a video on how to deal with that waste. If you're interested, let me know in the comments if you're interested in seeing how that works. Okay? Alright, so let me get this in the fume hood and we'll get some nitric acid on it. Okay, let's make some aqua regia. Let's see here. First in with the hydrochloric acid. Just a few hundred milliliters. Not a huge amount of gold in there, so that should be enough. Okay, let me get it stirring again. Get the heat back on. In with some nitric acid. And again, there's not a whole lot of gold in there, so not going to take a whole lot of acid, but I will put in about 4.5 milliliters to start with. Okay? And we'll just let this warm up and see what develops. I mean, I could see the gold in there. I couldn't see any other base metals in there. Rarely you can. But I could see the gold. So we should get a noticeable reaction once this warms up some. I'll show you what it looks like then. Okay, well, I'm waiting on the ball mill to finish doing its thing, which I just had to turn off to record this segment, but I'm getting close to being done. I've decided to run a second small-scale test side-by-side with this one. This is the first test. It's 250 grams of material. I'm extracting the iron from it with hydrochloric acid, muriatic acid, whatever you want to call it. On this side, I've also decided I'm going to try it with sulfuric acid and see how that works. see if it works any better, because the hydrochloric acid is quite slow. You know, it took a couple of treatments overnight, pretty darn slow. We'll see if the sulfuric acid is any quicker. Got some reaction going on in the sulfuric acid one, so something's happening. Liquid's also turned green, so yeah, something's going on in there. So we'll see if it seems like the sulfuric acid one works better than the hydrochloric acid one, or not. Now, this isn't about how much gold I get out of which of them. It's about which one dissolves the steel faster and better, okay? So, I mean, even after 2 acid treatments and overnight with this, I'm not certain I've got all of the iron filings out of it, okay? So we'll see how this does, just for comparison purposes. And it's the same thing. It's spinning away over there, but there's no stir bar in it. It's just the iron filings, the steel filings in the bottom spinning in the magnetic field of the thing. It's crazy. But yeah, we're getting some kind of reaction over there, so we'll see if it works any better. Nothing better to do while I got the ball mill running, so might as well do this. While I'm waiting, I'm going to holler over the ball mill rather than stopping it again. I've gone to Aquarija on this stuff that's been treated with the hydrochloric acid. So we're starting to get some orange fumes in there. Let's see if we can get the gold in there in solution. And see if we can drop it. Fairly clean drop, hopefully, after all that extraction. And see what it looks like. This one over here is still cooking with the sulfuric acid in it. I have to say the reaction with the sulfuric acid looks a lot more vigorous than the reaction with the hydrochloric acid did. I mean, I've got the heat turned way down on that, but look at all that bubbling and foaming going on in there. So that's interesting. Maybe I should get rid of the iron with sulfuric acid instead of hydrochloric. We'll see. This one here, we're still dissolving the gold with Aquarija on it. So we're a little further along on this one. This one seems to be catching up fast. Okay, the Aquarija seems to be about done over here. So I will get this denoxed and I'll get some ice on it. And we'll cool it down so I can filter it, and we'll drop the gold out of it. We still got quite the vigorous reaction going on over here, so to find out how vigorous this reaction is, it really doesn't seem to be proceeding all that fast. I'm not quite sure what's going on over there. There's still a lot of steel in there. So in spite of how vigorous that is, it's really not chewing up the steel all that quickly. So maybe I'm just better off sticking with the hydrochloric acid. I've got a lot of it on hand anyway. I don't have a whole lot of the sulfuric. I mean, I can get more. But, you know, I've already got, you know, gallons and gallons of hydrochloric acid on hand. So I'm thinking I might as well use it. It works. It's a little slow, but this is turning out to be kind of slow too. So maybe we'll just go with the hydrochloric. Anyway, let me get this denoxed, and we'll get some ice on it, and get it cooling down so I can filter it. I'll drop the gold out of it, see how much gold's there. Although, remember, the object of this exercise is not to find out how much gold is in this stuff. It's just to find out if I'm doing a good job of getting rid of the steel. Alrighty, it's time to denox this stuff. Per usual, I've got my saturated solution of sulfamic acid here, which should do a pretty good job of denoxing it. Oh yeah, we got some excess nitric in there. Okay. well and truly denoxed. Alright, get some ice on it, cool it down. We can drop the gold. Here we go with some ice. Okay, let that melt, cool and dilute that liquid. I'll get set up to filter it, and then we can drop out whatever gold it contains. This stuff still working. Okay, let's get this stuff filtered. I was worried when I put the ice on it that it had gone green, but I guess it was just turbid. The stuff on the bottom had gotten stirred up into it, and it made it look darker and greener than it was. It's actually pretty yellow, maybe with a tinge of green. We'll see how it comes through the filter here, what it looks like. It's coming through pretty yellow, at least to start with. Alright, so we'll let this filter and see what we got. It's definitely looking pretty yellow. Alright, that filtrate is coming through really nice and clear. If it's got any green at all to it, it's just a little bit. I've got all the liquid in. I'm going to wait for the liquid to drain through before I put the solids in. Then I'll rinse the solids with lots of distilled water. Get the gold-bearing liquid out of it and out of the filter up there. And then we'll be ready to drop the gold. Okay, all the solids are in. There's my stir bar. Nice and clean. Doesn't look like a fuzzy bear with a lot of little bits of steel stuck to it, so that's good. So it looks like we got all the steel out of it. Yes, it's definitely looking like a nice clean liquid coming through. Can't wait to drop the gold on that. So I just got to wait for it to drain through, wash some color out of the filter and the grounds in there. I can put this back in a beaker and we'll drop the gold. Okay, ready to drop the gold on this stuff. Now this stuff over here, notice is stirring pretty hard now. Obviously the sulfuric acid has finally dissolved enough of the steel out of there that it's no longer being locked up into a solid puck by the magnetic field from the stir bar. That's kind of what was happening, and it would maybe twist really slowly, but enough of the steel has been dissolved that the stir bar can move freely now, and it's stirring. So it's really not going any quicker than the hydrochloric acid treatments did. It just looks more impressive. There's not near as much bubbling and fizzing with the hydrochloric acid, but it's really, the sulfuric's not doing it any quicker. Okay, let's see if we can get the gold dropped on this stuff. Got my stump out by Bonide here. Contains sodium metabisulfite. Is what we need to get this gold to come out of solution. Stir. Oh yeah, that reaction. Oh yeah, there we go. I guess that was enough. All right, we will let that sit, and we will see what precipitates out of it. And we'll just let this keep cooking for now. Maybe I'll let it go overnight and deal with it in the morning. It's getting late in the afternoon. go in and cook dinner pretty quick. So yeah, I think we'll just leave it. Well, here's the small scale test. It's the next morning. Everything is settled out nicely. Looks like a fair amount of gold. Always looks like a fair amount of gold when it's wet. Anyway, I will get this cleaned up. It's a little green because I forgot to do the nitric acid extraction. Get the copper and silver out. So we got some contaminants there. But still, it looked like a pretty good gold drop. Now over here on the other side, speaking of green, yeah, the liquid's gone green with my sulfuric acid small scale test. I'll need to look at that too and see if we still got iron filings in there or if they're all gone or not. I don't know. So that might need more cooking before we take it to aqua regia. Actually, I'm going to try and remember to do a nitric acid extraction on that, and we'll see if we've got silver in this stuff too. Okay, so let me get this cleaned up and we'll see what kind of gold we got out of it. Okay, so here's our first look at some gold from Ken's chips from my first small scale test sample that I did. So I will get this cleaned up. I'll transfer it to a smaller beaker and give it a couple of distilled water boils, dry it out, and we'll weigh it, even though it's really not going to tell us too much about how much gold there is in the concentrates, just because I'm sure it's all stratified in a bucket and some places are having more gold than others. But I will get this cleaned up and we'll see what we got. Now, speaking of small scale samples, let me show you the other one. Okay, this one is back in the fume hood because you can't really see it, but there's the stir bar there. It is just absolutely covered with steel filings. So this sulfuric acid treatment, in spite of all the impressive fizzing and bubbling, really did not get rid of very much of the iron filings in there, steel filings. So I'm going to go ahead with a hydrochloric acid treatment on it, finish it up with hydrochloric acid, and we'll see what we get out of this, you know. So I'll put some hydrochloric acid on that, put it back on the heat and stirring, and see if we can get rid of the rest of the steel filings in there. Alrighty, I got the gold from this first small scale test cleaned up and dried out, so let's give it a weigh, see what we got here. Easily enough to move the scale, I'm sure. Alright, almost 1¼ grams, not quite. There's a lot of fine stuff in here that didn't want to come out. Probably not gonna make any difference on the scale. Alright, so 1.21 grams from 220 grams of concentrates. That's not too bad, but it's not necessarily representative of the concentrates, okay? Because I think I've said it a few times now, the stuff is probably stratified in the bucket, and there's probably areas in the bucket with more gold than others. So who knows where this came from? This could have come from an area with not much gold in it, could have come from an area with a lot of gold in it. We're going to have to process all the concentrates and figure out exactly how much gold's in them. So I've got a nice clean bottle here, and first of Ken's gold going in the bottle. We'll see how much we can fill up this bottle before we're done. Alright. There we go. First of Ken's gold in there. Alright. So, let me get back to work on the second small scale test. We'll see how it's going. And I got to get the ball mill back up and running. Should be done with it today. There's not much left to do. So hopefully it will be done today and we can move on with life. Alrighty, so here's my second small scale test. It looks like we've finally gotten rid of all the steel filings in there, so I'm going to go ahead and give this stuff a nitric acid treatment. Now, I swirled it around and I can see gold in there, but it's not showing up any better than the first time. So it's really hard to get that on camera, unfortunately. But trust me, there's some gold in there. Heck, we found gold in the first one, so we know it's there. I'm not going to forget this time. I'm going to put some nitric acid on this, and we're going to give it a nitric acid boil. That's probably more than enough, since there's not that much material in there. So, let me lit it up, get her spinning. Spin, there we go. And give it some heat. And we will see what develops out of that. And I'm going to test this for silver presence too, after it looks like the nitric acid has done its thing. So we'll just have to let it cook and see what we get. And I gotta get the ball mill rolling. We're on the last load or two. Fortunately, finally. Alright, it's been a little while. This has had a chance to warm up. We're getting a little bit of orange fume development in there, so that's good. It's telling me that the nitric acid is chewing up whatever base metals are left in there after the sulfuric and hydrochloric acid treatments. There's probably still some copper and some silver. They're not particularly susceptible to being dissolved by those acids. Maybe some other stuff too. So I'm going to let this go till I don't see any more activity. We'll let it settle, and then we'll give it a test to see if there's any silver in it. Okay, I've got this out of the fume hood. The reaction seemed to have stopped. It was just sitting there boiling quietly, no more fumes. So it's had a chance to just sit and settle for a little bit, so it's not quite so turbid. Liquid has turned green, which is an indication to me that we've dissolved something out of it, probably some copper. I've got some tap water here. Tap water has chlorine, as we all know. I'll try and get some of this stuff. It's still a little turbid even after sitting for a while, but I'm really not seeing a lot of evidence of silver there. The liquid is kind of slightly cloudy, but really the liquid I'm putting in is slightly cloudy, so we may just be transferring some turbidity over. There may not be a lot of silver in this stuff. So yeah, we may not be probably shouldn't be expected to get a lot of silver out of these parts by the looks of it. If there was a significant amount of silver there, we'd have a nice white cloud in there, and that water would be really cloudy, but we're not seeing that. So okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just rinse the green out of this material, and we'll get it back in the fume hood, and we'll put some aqua regia on it. We'll get the gold out of this stuff. Okay, we're going to try a little something here, see if I can show you the gold in this. I'm going to swirl it around like this. The heavy stuff, mainly gold, is going to wind up in the center, swirling it around like that, because it's going to be the first thing to settle out, and then other lighter stuff will settle out towards the edges. So I got my phone in selfie mode. There. Okay. You can't see the screen on the phone, but I will cut that into the video. There's the gold. Easier to see that way. So there's the gold. Right there. You can't see it in this view, but I'll cut it into the video. Easier to see that way. Okay, I gotta finish rinsing this and get it in a fume hood, and we'll get some aqua regia on that and dissolve that gold we just saw. There we go. That's the reaction we want to see. Yeah, good vigorous reaction in there. Gold going into solution. And let it cook until the reaction stops. Alrighty, the reaction is done. It's run its course. All the gold should be in solution. I am going to denox this, ice it down to cool it and dilute it, filter it, and then we'll drop the gold. Just like the first time around. If you can hear me over the thunder, we're having a bit of a thunderstorm pass by. Not really getting any rain out of it yet, but it's thundering pretty good. Anyway, it's going to be just like the first time. I've already filmed that. I won't make you sit through it again. Be back when we're ready to drop the gold out of this stuff, okay? Besides, you probably won't be able to hear me too good over the thunder. Okay, so the liquid has been denoxed, iced down. The ice is melted. I have filtered it, and we are ready to drop the gold. Now, interestingly, this liquid was quite clear. It wasn't all turbid like the last batch was. Now, the last batch looked like it had silver chloride in it. I tested this stuff for silver, the presence of silver, before I did the Aqua Regia, and we got basically a negative. So I don't know. Maybe some batches of this are going to have some silver in it and some aren't. I'll probably have to test each and every batch and see if a particular batch looks like it might have a recoverable amount of silver in it. But it doesn't look like this batch did. So we're ready to drop the gold again with a little bit of stump out, sodium metabisulfite. So let's get this dropping. Give it a stir. That's about all it needed last time. Ooh, don't splash it. It's good stuff. You don't want to splash it. Get a little bit more while it's moving good here. And we'll lid it up and let it sit here and do its thing. I do believe I see a reaction starting to happen. So we'll just let it sit and let it go. See what we get. It's definitely a lot paler than it was. Yeah. So next it should go dark. Just not as quick as last time for some reason. There's the color change we're looking for. Just took a few extra seconds. Okay, so we're on our way to dropping the gold again. Alright, good news. That is the last of the chips milled through the ball mill. They are finally done. This last load is done. Ooh, I can vacuum the dust out of there and move on to the next process. So I will get to that in a second. But the good news doesn't stop there. Let me show you something else. So there's the gold from our second small scale test right there. I put the beaker on the boil just to get things to consolidate a little quicker. And they have. I wanted to get this done today, and it is done. So I'm going to let that cool down a little bit. Decant off that liquid. Clean up that gold. Like I cleaned up the first batch of gold, we'll weigh it and see what we got. I've got a path to move forward now. I've got all the chips incinerated, all the milled. I need to do another gravity separation, so I have all of the concentrates ready to go. I have a path forward. The small scale tests are working. We're getting rid of the steel. Okay, maybe it's not the best way to do it. The first video in this series has gone live, and there have been some really good comments and suggestions in it. And if I had this to do over again, I might do some things a little different. For instance, I might have tried to separate the magnetic and non-magnetic chips. Although with so many chips that would have been difficult, but it might have made life a little easier if I had done it. So if I had to do it over again, I might do things a little different. Some of you are probably going to violently disagree with the way I'm doing this, but we're going to do it this way. I have a process that works. We're going to move forward. And starting in the next video, we're going to start processing the bulk of the concentrates from Ken's chips. So let me get the ball mill vacuumed out, let me get this cleaned up, and we'll weigh it up. Alrighty then. let's see how much gold we got on this second small scale test. All right. Come on out. Join your friends in there. Just about the same amount of gold as the first time around. A little bit surprised by that. A little bit more, actually. Just goes to show you that different areas of that bucket of concentrates are going to have different amounts of gold in them. Although the difference isn't as great as I thought. I wouldn't be surprised if there's places in that bucket where there's almost no gold, and places in the bucket where the gold is there's a lot more gold than this in it. So yeah, so we did pretty good. So there's another 1.31 grams of gold to go in this jar here. We're slowly filling it up, but in the next video we're going to start working on filling it up a lot faster, because in the next video, well, first off, I've got to sift out and gravity separate all the stuff from the second half of the chips. I'm not going to belabor the point, though. If you want to see that in detail, you can watch part 2 again, okay? I will touch on some of the high points, all right, as we're doing it. And then we will get into doing larger batches of the concentrates and see if we can make up some more gold a little faster than we are with these smaller batches. I'd like to get a fair amount of gold in this jar. So that's where we're going to go in part 4. But thank you very much for watching part 3 of this series of videos of dealing with Ken's RAM chips. And part 4 will be out soon. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to see the future videos in this series and all the other videos I'm putting out. Press the little bell icon YouTube makes you press to be notified when new videos are coming out. Check out my second channel, Electro Geek 64. Lots of good stuff going on there. Subscribe there too, please. Feel free to comment and you know, give me advice, give me constructive criticism, no trolling, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.